Hey everyone, just wanted to jump on here real quick before we get started to give a little heads up. We're talking about consent in this episode, and some of the places that we go just could possibly be a little triggering. So, heads up, hope you enjoy the episode. It's a little chaotic.
Look at this. We're back. Episode 2 of season 5.
Yeah.
And on time. Well, at least I'm saying that. But we're just recording it right now. It has to be released in the morning still. So, but I'm saying it's going to be on time, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, we want these a little bit, accurate to the time frame.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in just a second.
You keep talking. Tell them where we're at, right. What we're doing.
Well, we do have a special guest in the studio today. You may have heard him just now, but we have given him some headphones, and he is watching Spider-Man cartoons to hopefully keep him somewhat quiet.
He's using Airpods, and those in tiny little ears.
I have tiny ears.
They're just going to be, it's just going to be fun.
That's right. But it's going to be fun to have him in the studio today. Yeah. Oh, see, he just took it out again.
Why'd you do that?
This is going to be a regular thing, I think. So we're thrilled to bring you all the one and only Asher Travis today. So, just be aware that you're going to hear him from time to time, which I don't care.
So, background here: we not only have Asher with us today, because his new daycare doesn't start till next week,
right?
But we came back to Spokane, so we're in Spokane at Riverside State Park.
Yeah,
and because there is a heat wave. And we wanted to be plugged into power to get through this.
Yeah, because our little generator is starting to act up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I could not tax it for, all day running our AC. And it's supposed to be fucking triple digits today.
Yeah.
Digits.
Yeah, but the thing is, in order to do this while it's somewhat cool, we have to do it in the morning. But we had Asher come at 7 this morning.
Yeah.
And we can't have the fans on. We can't have the AC on because it's super loud. And so we're waiting for this perfect opportunity to set him down to watch Spider-Man, get the Airpods figured out. And we sit down, and what happens?
Well, a garbage truck decided that this was the time to empty the campground garbages.
And we sit under the airport flight path out here at the park. So, we're just not going to get around it. So it just is what it is.
So in our very professional podcasting studio here, you're going to hear airplanes. You're going to hear, I think the garbage truck is gone for good. You're definitely going to hear Asher from time to time. You're going to hear, dogs barking and people walking and kids playing. Oh, he just pulled them both out. Are you here? You took them out? This is going to be... You're silly. You let off talking about, that we had to do this recording in the morning. I wasn't going to talk about that at all. Because I've already had a comment from one of our friends who listened to an earlier episode commenting on our breakfast gin and tonic.
It's not a gin and tonic today.
No. What are we drinking today? We're drinking Bloody Marys because that's a breakfast drink. So these are dry fly ready mix Bloody Marys, though. So we pop a can and out it comes. So from Spokane local dry fly. That is not a commercial. Nobody in dry fly listens to, to be able to get that. But anyway,
it felt appropriate to.
It did feel appropriate, didn't it? So cheers with a little Bloody Mary here to get started. So, Asher, buddy, you got to work with us here. Now he's just going wild. Well, we're just going to keep going, and he'll have to figure it out.
And I won't be able to find my AirPods later. Oh, don't put those in your mouth.
No, you're going to be able to find him in his diaper later because he's going to swallow him. So,
oh my goodness. What just happened?
All right.
Okay.
We're going to take a little pause for a second, and we'll come right back once we figure out a solution that isn't going to be chaotic the whole time. Okay, so we're back. We'll see if this works or not.
Yeah.
There may be a few more pauses in our in this podcast episode.
Yeah.
But we'll make do. It's worth having him here. So, because we talked in an episode like I think our last Sacred Spaces episode. We talked about one of the most difficult things was being away from him for so long.
Yeah.
Well, now we have exactly the opposite, where he has been living with us practically for almost the last week.
Yeah.
And so that Sydney could, because we talked about, her needing a job, finding a job. She found one, which is awesome. It's a
administrative assistant job.
It's so much better in every way.
Yeah.
The atmosphere is just kind of loose and fun, she says. She's making
like $3 more an hour.
Yeah, considerably more an hour. Like, why did she put up with that shit for so long, right?
Yeah.
But in that process, she had to switch daycares. And so the new daycare doesn't have room for him until Monday.
Next Monday, yeah.
Yeah,
Monday
so
the 1st.
Yeah, so we have had him with us constantly, and we talk about how we love the hell out of him. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
We love the hell out of him, but oh my God, he is wearing us out.
Well, sometimes I think, if we weren't trying to get some work done at the same time, maybe we would feel different. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm just old. Yeah. This is a lot of work.
We're just fucking old.
I did this young for a reason.
I haven't felt so fucking old in a long time. I'm just like, I'm just tired. We look at our clocks and we're like,
you're going to get in trouble from somebody for all this cussing while he's sitting here on the
bed. He has
bed.
his headphones on. He's not listening to us. You're probably right, though. But he really does have
We put an explicit rating on these, but then we record in front of him.
But he has his head. He can't hear me. Oh, jeez. Don't listen to our podcast, Asher. So,
oh my gosh.
Well, okay. Well, I'll try to. How about I try to control it a little bit this episode? Should we see if I can? Should we see if I can get through an episode without dropping
Do I
another
get
F-bomb?
Money on this bet?
No, you get you get nothing. You get the satisfaction of knowing that I can go for a period of time without swearing. So, how about that?
Yeah.
So, but like we said, we are in an actual campground, which we have really found recently that we don't like to be in campgrounds.
No, but I do like showers, and I get more of them when we are hooked up to water, since we can't carry very much.
Right. Yeah. There's that.
Yeah. So there is some trade off.
No, totally. And I wasn't going to say that we don't like campgrounds, just for like we're like down on campgrounds and all that kind of stuff. Like, we just spent, this is where we are now, but we just got here last night. We have spent the last week up at a campground, not a campground, a camping area, just a spot we found in the forest up at Priest Lake, Idaho. And it was amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, we just had the whole thing. I mean, it was just like, we just pull in there and we set up and we were there for like a week. We had to pull out midweek to go refill water and, dump our RV tanks and that kind of stuff. And then, but it was amazing.
Yeah. Aside from the mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes were horrendous.
Yes. I finally, got to shave today because I had, water, plentiful water.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I think I have like 10 zillion on my legs because this is so hard today. You guys all wanted to know about my, leg shaving.
Yes,
But yeah, so we're kind of
I keep
covered.
encouraging you just to let it grow, baby. Let it grow.
Yeah,
Go all
I can't
natural.
sleep. I can't
So,
yeah. So it was absolutely beautiful up there.
Yeah.
Priest Lake is one of our favorite lakes. It's so clear. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But we did have the girls come up for the weekend, and we played at the lake one day, and Kaylee and I were holding down the fort, like a little spot. And I suddenly just felt the world getting really, really small. More and more people were showing up on the beach, and it got packed. I mean, like really packed.
Yeah.
And so everybody had the same idea, of course, to spend the weekend doing that. But Asher absolutely loved the water, loved the lake. He's a little confused on which things are rivers, creeks, lake, and ocean.
Right.
So he just picks a water word, and that's where we go.
Well, and somehow he got in his mind that the Jeep is the beach. So not like he thinks of the sandy beach. He just thinks that's its name.
Well, his most epic adventure with us was getting in the Jeep and going to the beach, and it was just this big thing. So there's this connection point for him with that.
So he's always like, I want to go to the beach. And we're like, the beach is a long ways away. And he like looks at us.
Yeah.
It's right
so,
there.
Yeah, it's, yeah. But I'm so excited, though. We're exposing him to so many fun things in nature. He absolutely loves being in nature. And you had a wonderful time with him at the lake the other day.
We did, yeah.
Just the two of you. I was supposed to have a podcast interview, be interviewed on a podcast. And
supposed to.
Yeah. We have this wonderful thing called Starlink.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely amazing. We could not have spent a week in Priest Lake without it. And then all of a sudden,
it just didn't work.
10 minutes away from my interview, and I lost all internet.
Right.
I couldn't, and you guys left, and I couldn't even get
a hold of us.
And no cell service, nothing.
So we were gone for like 2 hours to give you time to do your podcast.
The host of the podcast was just like,
what the
didn't
hell?
Hear from me for an hour and a half.
I already
See,
that's not a real cuss word. It's in the Bible. It's not a cuss word.
So anyway, it was an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah. So part of the other adventure that comes along with having Asher with us is like all of the just hilarious things he does and says on a constant basis.
Yeah.
And
so there was this thing. I know where you're going with this, but I have one other story that he told. Yeah. Or that happened. So him and he loves at night as we're getting ready to, wind down for bed. He loves to go through pictures. He wants to find baby Asher in my phone. So we go through and we look at pictures, and
told you we're in a campground.
And he found this picture. It's the cover to my Connected podcast, and it was a picture I chose very specifically because of my own journey with my eye and brain surgery and everything. And he, in this picture, one of the after effects of this surgery is that I have in my left eye, my pupil doesn't respond correctly. Yeah. So sometimes it's really big, sometimes it's really small, but it doesn't correlate with my other eye. So it's just like this, my crazy eye. And so
that's one way
it does what it wants to do. And it's not reactive to light like my other eye. So this photo is very obvious that I have this very giant pupil on my left eye.
Right.
And, but he doesn't understand any of that. And we're scrolling through and he sees that picture and I said, "Who is this?" And he goes, "Amma."
Yeah, like kind of reserved.
Reserved. And he said, "It's scary me."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?" And it took me a second. I don't know what he's saying.
He's talking about Spider-Man.
And he said, "It's scary me." And I said, "What scares you?" And he says, "The eyes." And I realized that he wanted me to change it. He didn't want to keep looking at it. And he loves looking at pictures of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that there was something about this need to see balance in people, in everything. Like we need to like have an equalizing of things. And so he was identifying something was off because there wasn't balance in this picture. And if both my pupils had been really big, it probably would have been fine. If both of them had been really small, it'd probably been fine. But they weren't, and it scared him. It was like this interesting observation to see him react to it. So,
well, I think in that picture you still had some redness and stuff too.
Oh,
so
did
it
I?
was but it was just it's the perceptions that we that we just don't think about. We just kind of take in stride, and then all of a sudden he comments on something or points something out, and it's just kind of
kids are so honest.
It's been a long time since we have been full time around. And I know I shouldn't say this because Asher, I mean, he lived with us clear up until February of this year. So, I mean, we're only several months removed. But you have to understand that, I mean, and I think a lot of people do understand this, but developmentally, he has changed so much in the last couple months that we have been on the road. And so he's talking more. He's like putting whole sentences together. He's,
concepts.
Like the things that he understands and the things that he, all that kind of, all that stuff. And so, it's been a long time since we've been full time with a toddler. and the questions, the comments, the talking, the trying to get our attention is,
the poking, the prodding, the
prodding.
So this morning, I'm sitting out at the picnic table, eating, oatmeal and toast, and he's got a piece of toast with him too. And I have a tank top on because I'm kind of prepared for the day being hot. And apparently,
a little cleavage? Is that the word you're looking for? Was that hard for you to say?
It was hard for me to say. I was like, wait a minute, I'm talking about my son.
Is your purity culture kicking in right now? You can't reference your own cleavage?
Yes, probably. Oh my gosh, it's a whole episode on its own. So he comes up to me and he's like, ooh, and he starts poking my cleavage and he's like, boobies. And I said, Asher, I said, don't do that. I said, you didn't ask.
You didn't ask.
Because we're working on consent with him, like this exchange back and forth.
Yes, yeah.
And which we'll talk more about in a second. But he says, may I please touch your boobies? And I said, no. And he goes, oh.
It's like, I asked, please. Yeah.
So,
well, and with me, it's the, he's right at the right height, like I'm standing up and he just walks right up and he like pokes straight in front of eye level to him. And he's like, Papa has a penis. And he starts like poking it. And I'm like, yep. And you didn't have permission to touch it.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because Sydney it's really important to her. And I'm so proud of her for this, for teaching him consent on so many levels, other people, himself, the whole bit.
And not just, I don't even know the right way to say it, modest body parts, and not just too, but it's just like anybody.
Permission in your space.
Yeah, to hug him, to hold his hand, to, any of that kind of stuff. Like she's teaching him that he has agency, which is, we never taught our girls.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that.
Not in the same way, not so intentionally.
There were things I was very intentional about.
Oh, Jesus, I'm the terrible father.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I remember a conversation later, and we talked about this on another episode, where you were pretty amazed by how many ways us girls, they were teenagers and adults by that time, were creating safety nets around us for just being in public. how to protect ourselves in public. And so I think
but I don't correlate that with a consent conversation.
Really?
Though. No, because like consent is about giving and asking for respect when it comes to your body autonomy. I mean, and I guess there is a crossover there that, guys ogling and making comments and while you're walking down the street, it is obviously not, they don't have consent to do that.
Right.
Obviously. But I think there's a part of that where it's like, well, that's just obviously wrong. But then we don't talk about and let's go to the whole church culture that, you and I talked about this quite a bit, where they're the pastor's kids and they're expected to, if somebody walks up and wants to give them a hug, they're expected to give them a hug. Mm-hmm. It's the older guy, coming up and saying something to you and then putting his hand on your back and then dropping to the small of your back. And you're just supposed to stand there and take it. Like that's what I think of when I think of the consent conversation, is that no, nobody has the right to anything to do with you. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I'm saying that I don't, at least I wasn't a part of. You may have done that, but I was not a part of that, to my discredit.
Well, I think there's a couple things here. First, I think the lack of teaching consent in our society is what allows for the guy to yell at a girl walking by on the street with, it's absolute permission, that there is no respect. And consent requires that there is respect for somebody else's space. So I don't think they're disconnected. I just think it's the broader umbrella of our society of not having not teaching consent. I think where it gets tricky is what exactly, when you're caring for a child, you're related to a child, aunt, uncle, grandparent, even sibling. What does consent, teaching consent look like in that atmosphere? And, we hear those, they're not, I say stories, but they're not stories. They're accounts of people who've been molested or violated in some degree by a family member. So we know that this happens. There's rarely ever a family that doesn't have one of those, at least one of those stories that exist in it. So yet we somehow have this issue socially with teaching kids that we teach them how to be safe and how to say no, these certain things, this certain list of things is not allowed. So if somebody does that, you don't keep secrets. You don't, you and I grew up with those conversations on our, No,
I didn't.
We did. But it was more universal in terms of, I think it was the era when stranger danger was a phrase that we heard a lot of. And eventually stranger danger turned into don't keep secrets for anyone, that sort of thing. We started to realize more publicly that these violations were closer to home.
So let's kind of dig into that or you want to finish a thought?
Well, I'm just kind of going.
Huffed at me.
Well, I'm kind of going somewhere with this. But now I've forgotten.
Well, it must not have been very important.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you. This might.
Go ahead.
I don't know. Maybe it'll jog you. But you said something. You said, we were taught, these things. And I'm like, no, I was not. And in fact, what I was taught was, don't put your hands there. That's dirty. That's what I was taught. It's dirty, to don't touch myself there. It's dirty, stop I don't know why. Sometimes, the weirdest memories just pop into my head. But my aunt and uncle had a pool, and so we used to have family gatherings there all the time. And I just remember, my aunts in the pool, and I was like, like a 5-6-year-old kid, just like I couldn't stop staring at the boobies, and then I would get caught, staring at them, and everybody start laughing and, start covering themselves up and all that kind of stuff. But it was never like addressed. I mean, it was never like, proper names for things, proper etiquette, proper, reasoning for, why we don't just grab ourselves in public, and not because it's dirty, but there's.
But I think the culture that we came from said that it was. And so it was not only dirty for it to happen in public, it was dirty for us to talk about it. And we didn't know how. Or I should say we were kids at the time. But culturally, our religious circle, even beyond that, just didn't know how to have these conversations yet.
But I think that's exactly what led to the things we were just talking about.
Right.
And I experienced it very much through you guys in the church, through you and Kaylee and Sydney. I experienced this through you after the fact, about how much of a problem this was in the church. Like all the churches that we attended, it was the same kinds of things where these expectations that were put on our girls, expectations that were put on you, where you were not allowed to have autonomous authority over your own body.
Right.
You were expected to give that up to a certain point.
Right.
And so when you're expected to give it up to a certain point, but you never really talk about what the point is, like when did the line get crossed? You never really talk about that. Then it becomes associated with that group of people. Right. And so it's like, no. You don't have to let a stranger on the street walk up and give you a hug. But when you're in church, we all love each other here. We're all family. You have to let them give you a hug. Okay, so what happens when the lines start getting pushed and start getting crossed and things become more and more uncomfortable? But this is a person. I was told they have different privileges than just a random person on the street. And so then nobody talks about, being touched or being, persuaded, coerced, or uncomfortable situations, that kind of thing. And like, that is something that I see Sydney combating with Asher.
Yeah. I think you said a lot of things in there.
I did say a lot of things. That's why
my brain is like
I'm going to stop talking
ping-ponging all over the place. But I do think, and we'll have done this after we get done with this conversation, but I do think that we owe this episode a content warning. That we're going to have this conversation so that people are aware that, I honestly, when we decided we were going to talk about, how we teach consent to a next generation, I came into this conversation a little unprepared that it would lead to all of these categories. Now, I look at it and I go, of course it will. So it is a tough conversation to have without going to all the different avenues that this issue of consent goes to. Now, I think that when we look at areas in which we socially learn that some people have more privilege to us than other people, these are things that I think kids are navigating like crazy. They're searching to figure out, how does this work? How does this fit in? When is it okay? When is it not okay? And I think that that's the route that I ended up taking raising our girls.
Sure.
Was isolating the different situations versus a broader thing which Sydney's doing about teaching consent in general. And so it was more about who has permission to do this based on who you and I thought were safe to have that permission. We weren't giving them the agency. We were doing it for them in guise of, protecting them, right? So I think that what Sydney's doing is going one step further, which is giving Asher his own agency to be able to say that, but also to implement in how he interacts with other people. And I also find it fascinating because she's choosing to do that in raising a boy. And it seemed like common sense for me to do that in raising girls. Now, I don't have experience in raising a boy, but, as a woman raising daughters, innately, without saying it out loud, we all know they are a certain kind of target for physical interaction. And even as I've gotten older, understanding identity interaction, like how, what the expectation of them in these different kinds of relationships would be. And, for the most part, we had what we felt like were pretty safe family situations, but because my previous generations did not, I was always on guard about what the girls, what my expectation of the girls were. And there was one thing that I did early on when we started working for the church. We were working primarily in youth ministry at that time. And knowing that teens go through all kinds of things and everything from, basic hormone changes to their own personal traumas that they're going through in life, and we're there to help them work through it. I wanted to make sure that the girls were not in harm's way of what that journey for these for the students was. And so it was important to me that the students didn't have all access to the girls, because we were working with them, multiple times a week. They were in our home, and just creating boundaries around that, being very selective on who we had babysit for us or that we didn't at all. We didn't have a lot of babysitting happen. But I remember consciously having conversation with the girls when they were little that you don't have to shake anyone's hand. You don't have to hug people just because they come up and want to hug you. I wanted them to know that I didn't have that expectation of them, that it was their choice if they wanted to do that. And there were some families in the church that were just like family. I mean, closer than some of our family is close to us. And so those were relationships that there was more, of them choosing the type of interaction that they had with them. But I think consent seems like it's about something physical, but I think it's far more about our whole being and what we're giving other people permission to access in us. And the physical is a very literal experience of it. But if Asher can learn a broader experience of what consent is, he's not just learning this mutual respect and respect even when, the situation is muddy and confusing, that that in that physical respect that there is autonomy in who somebody chooses to be.
Yeah.
What is he doing behind me?
He's taken out his headphone and he's got it in his mouth.
Oh, I feel hands on my
shoulders.
shoulders.
Get it out of your mouth, bud. No. That's,
Can we push pause and I'll get this taken care of?
Yeah, let's do that for a second. Well, because we had to take a break anyway, we figured this would be a good time for just a little quick commercial break. So, we wanted, in the last episode, we talked pretty extensively about, he wants toast.
This is so hard.
we talked pretty extensively about what we were going to be doing with this podcast and the Patreon and different levels of it and all that kind of stuff. And we're not going to rehash all of that all over again. But we definitely wanted to remind people about it. Oh, Spider-Man is on the TV now. I'm going to pause that. We'll just turn the volume down on the TV. Good thing this isn't a commercial for someone else because no one else would accept it. So, but we would just love for you to go visit our Patreon page, and that is located where?
Well, it will be it will be linked in the show.
Oh,
notes
we'll link it
sure.
in the show notes. The show notes.
Yeah, and then you can also go to our Instagram account and find it.
That'd be the easiest way.
Yeah, in the link in the bio there.
And then, even if...
I think it's just Patreon / Getting Lost With You.
Yeah, look it up in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I asked you a question you weren't ready for. Now you're frustrated with me.
Yeah, because I actually told you the truth, and now you're questioning me.
Oh, got it. So anyway, even if you're not ready to become a patron of the show, we totally understand. Would you please just like the show, and would you give us a rating? Would you tell a friend about it? Something like that, right?
Yeah. But we'd love to kind of build a community so that we can continue to have some conversations about really important topics.
Yes, we would.
And the Facebook group that we've created. No, you can't try my drink.
All right.
So anyway,
Yes.
We would love to have some amazing discussions in there.
Yeah.
Around that, and talk about some of the things that you want to talk about, because we love a great discussion, and I know that people can be part of that in that way. Okay, juice box to the rescue.
We'll see. We'll see if it works or not.
Yeah. So I've got another project that I'm doing, and I've started a new podcast that's just me. I still have Connected, which is interviews I do with women from all over the world sharing their stories.
That comes as you book those conversations.
And I've gotten more particular because I've had a lot of people reach out, just want to, advertise their business.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in the story of being human. So I'm releasing fewer of those so that I can really bring that to life. But I started another podcast as a place for my own voice. It's called Liberate Your Story podcast, and I'm talking about the language that we use culturally, that we just have adapted to, and sometimes we don't pause to say, what does that actually mean?
Right.
And especially those of us who come from a religious background, there's a lot of language that we use that is more like phrased mantras, or we can make something fit any situation kind of thing. Condolences, things like that. And I just wanted an opportunity to kind of break that apart a little bit and talk about what we're actually saying.
Right.
And do we mean what we're actually saying? And what are the repercussions of that? And the hope is that when we liberate ourselves from some of these... oh, thank you. Boy, that was fast. When we liberate ourselves from some of that, we have the opportunity to live a different kind of story.
That didn't last very long.
I will be happy to give him another juice box, although juice is going to hit us here in a few minutes.
It will, but that's totally fine. While you're getting him another juice box, I would like to say that I know I am heavily biased, but you've got 3 episodes out already. And
a trailer. The trailer is actually kind of interesting too.
Yeah. Asher, don't touch that.
Here, bud.
And another recorded that I have listened to you record, but no one else. It's not published yet.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I am loving what you're doing with this. Like I said, I know I'm biased. Everybody's going to be like, yeah, whatever. But seriously, I listen to a good amount of podcasts, and with varying different content and stuff. I know I'm biased, but I don't think that I'm blind or deaf maybe when it comes to podcasting. I think this is a really, truly great podcast from you. So again, liberateyourstorypodcast.com. Liberateyourstory.com. Or is it liberateyourstorypodcast.com?
Correct.
Got it. And then, and same thing, please just subscribe to it, follow it, well, that's what you do when you subscribe to it, is you follow it. And then, give it a rating, and then, share it with anyone that you think might also, enjoy it too. So,
and I think that there is a little bit of risk in sharing this particular podcast because, if you resonate with it, it might expose a bit about you. Yeah. Because I'm challenging a lot of
yes, you are.
social, religious, cultural things that we do and say. And so if you're going to share it, maybe it's, hey, I listened to this podcast. What do you think? I'd love to have a conversation about it. But, or at least reach out to me. I'd love to have the conversation
and
too.
And you give all the information for that too on the podcast. So so go check it out. So, before we were so rudely interrupted by our grandson, and he will interrupt us again, I guarantee it. Mm-hmm. We were having, in the consent conversation, talking about how consent isn't just physical, that there's a whole consent is regarding our entire being. One of the things that I've really noticed that Sydney has done differently than we did, mm-hmm. And we were way more progressive than our parents were, right? Because I think that's how it goes too. Yeah. But she is very particular on not using I don't know, what do you call slang names for body parts? Yeah. Code words. Yeah. Even though he did say boobies this morning, so I guess there is some. Yeah. But I mean, He says the word penis. He says the word vagina. He says this kind of thing. And he's really into figuring out which of the family members have penises and which ones have vaginas. That's right. So and at first I was just like, this little kid that could barely talk is saying penis and vagina so much, But I think there's a part of that where it's like, she is taking the mystery out of it, which I think is wonderful. I'm not saying that in a bad way, because like for me growing up, it was all mystery, which then meant like, well, how do I figure out what's going on then? And you say boys and girls are different, but what does that mean? What do they, if a girl doesn't look like me, what does she look like? And, and just going through, he just turned the TV off. And now he's upset. This is going to be the most frustrating podcast episode to listen to because it's a really serious topic. It really is. But maybe this is exactly what it's about, is that this is the day in and day out, and what are we doing to continue to teach? Can you say hi? Asher, say hi. Hi. And I think that, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to finish this thought. I think that teaching self-agency is going to allow for more acceptance of the differences between us, because we value our own differences. Yeah. No, don't bite the microphone. We're going to probably have to cut this one a little short. Yeah. We probably will have to. Yes. And, you know, we can, and this is a conversation that doesn't have to be a one-time conversation. We can talk about this anytime. I just think, well, then you got to turn the TV back on, buddy. I do just think, though, that there is this whole different way that he is being raised, that he has tools that I never had growing up, right?
Right.
And I think that is so incredibly important, that it's just going to be kind of like this given that, no, you don't touch me unless I tell you to. No, you can't just give me a hug if you don't want to, or whatever else. I'm not sure what he's upset about right now. Oh, is that what it is? So anyway, let's pick up this conversation later on. How about that?
Yeah, I'm.
It is on.
Oh my goodness.
You know what?
It just is what it is.
Here's what I think it's time.
Road stories.
And this might be one of them. This is my road story. This whole episode is my road story for this week. Because, you know, it's the things that we don't, you know, we have this whole brilliant plan for how we're going to do this, and our studio set up on the road and all that kind of stuff. And then we don't expect him to be swallowing your AirPods right now. Take those out of your mouth. Jesus. God. Yeah, so anyway, there's my road story. Is you've been experiencing my road story with me.
So I'm going to try and tell my road story.
Okay.
But you get dibs on him.
Got
if
it.
He does something.
That's right. That's right. He's a little nutso right now. So,
I've never seen him like this.
Oh, come on.
No.
You've never seen him like this?
Not doing that.
Not doing that one very specific thing.
We have aluminum foil in the windows on one side of the trailer to avoid
To reflect the heat.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm turning it
Asher,
on. There you go.
Would you like that, or go play dinos outside? Okay, so I'm going to try and tell the story.
Okay, try to tell it.
So my road story this time is Instagrammers.
Right.
And we had the fun of going hiking and hanging out with Joey and Erica Addington in Cannon Beach. And we there was a couple of, like, I know there's a word for it, but Instagram sightings, like people are doing their,
you can't go
TikTok
anywhere now
reels
without seeing somebody
doing,
posing or putting, doing a live or what.
Yeah. So we were up at Ecola State Park, and previously in the week, you and I had been up to an upper tier of the park, and it was like everybody's surfing up there, and you couldn't even get into park. And so we went to this lower part, and we're walking. We had done this beautiful hike, and we're just coming to get that, the Goonies, view of Haystack Rock. And we notice as we're walking towards that little area in the parking lot, there's this little ordeal happening at a car, and there's an orange surfboard and a girl in an orange swimsuit, like a bikini.
Right.
And it was just like there was so much conversation and like chaos around this board, and I'm like, this doesn't really feel like surfing. Like it wasn't what we had been exposed to at the other beach where people were, putting wetsuits on and going in, and actually there's no access to surfing at this particular part of the park. And so it just kind of caught our attention, and Erica and I were like quietly observing the whole thing.
Right.
And so we walked down to a lookout point, and we see this group of young people walking, and they stop, and they do these like posed pictures and panning around, and the girl's standing there with her surfboard, and they got the picture. It took all of like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they walked back and put it all back in the car. And we're like, oh my gosh. We literally later that day went looking on social media for a girl in an orange swimsuit with an orange surfboard. So if you find it, I want to see it. I want to see what actually came of it. But I'm like, I love making reels and doing some things on social media as a reflection of, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
But
you're
work
not like
that goes into
manufacturing scenarios.
Yeah,
we just kind of grab them as they happen.
Yeah, I am just, so now it's almost like Bigfoot sightings. It's like
Right.
I am really aware of all of the Instagram posing that is going on as we travel. It's everywhere. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
Yeah, so that's my road story.
That's your road story.
Road stories.
I just love that sound.
I know you had so much fun.
I did have so much fun making that. Okay, so let's wrap this up. This absolute shit show of an episode. Let's wrap it up right now.
Right.
And let's talk about where we're headed next, because I'm excited about this.
Yeah, we're gonna head back to the coast, to Olympic National Park. We went there last year in September. And kind of did a quick pan around the outer edge of it. So this time, we're going to explore a little bit and kind of see what we can find in there. National parks are a little tricky right now because in order to get in, you have to make reservations at some of them. So we're going to see what happens. But we just want some cooler temps too and get back to seeing the ocean.
Yeah. And we're going to stop and see some friends on the way. So we're excited about that, too. Just kind of take our time getting over there. So we're super excited about that. But I am thinking at this point that we will be recording our next episode in Olympic National Park. Right?
Ooh,
yeah, I think so.
I think it could be close. We'll see.
Yeah. I think it will be. It will be. So anyway, we're going to sign off for now. And just chalk this one up to an experience. And we know better next time.
We were very optimistic coming into this episode. And probably should have just picked a much lighter topic. But I don't know.
Then consent with kids. That we have to put a fucking warning on. Yeah, we probably should have picked a different topic. But we didn't know. Live and learn, baby. Live and learn, right?
Oh my God.
Okay, we will be coming to you from much cooler temps for us. And, more than likely without Asher next time. More than likely. I'm not going to say absolutely, but more than likely. Yeah. Asher, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Say goodbye. Okay, there you go.